Love it.
welcome. We are live from Calgary, Canada, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and Berkeley, Alameda County, California. Hello, Anne from London. Anna Matthews, lovely to meet you. Welcome, welcome. It's so good to see you all popping in. I gotta tell you, Myrtle, Jane from New Zealand, welcome.
Oh,
It is so much fun to have this be an Oakland.
Bill.
Hello. What? Jackie, nice to meet you. We'll have to do coffee or something. It's nice to have somebody so close. Bill, lovely to see you from upstate New York, the Finger Lakes area, or at least that's in my imagination. Hi. I wish I could understand what it is that makes this form so much fun. It's really I don't know what it is. From a technology perspective, they do a really good job both of the live, the video, and all of that. So I'm sold on it just on that. But the experience of hello, you didn't even get a notice. Good for you for putting up.
Love it
Nice to
anyway.
see you, Linda. Mary, good to see you. So my point is, it's fun in ways we don't understand. It's especially nice to be called out, to have your name go by. So excuse me if I missed anybody. I think Linda has just reminded us that we all have an open invitation to call out again if you didn't get noticed when you popped in. Excuse me. See, this dirty little secret is if I push my camera, I'm likely to knock the whole thing over because it's balanced on a couple of boxes and a piece of wood. But in all
We need to do a
seriousness,
behind the scenes photo at some point.
oh, hello, Diane in Australia. Diane, our bowerbird in our family history bowerbird in Australia. Welcome. Yeah, we need
So,
a behind the scenes, the
for people
making
who
of.
didn't get the notice, mine just came in. I just got it on my
Oh, I
watch, a
know.
Substack
It
notice.
pops
So,
in. I have on the iPad that's holding up my phone. I have my account live, so I see yeah, that's also, by the way, insider tip. That's why I move around a lot at the beginning because when the preview video starts circling to tell people I'm live, I have hands moving. In all seriousness, though, I did join, as I was telling you earlier, I joined this Substack sponsored webinar on live video. It was a little bit of best practices, a little bit of complaints, and a little bit of preview for what's coming. And I will say, I'm kind of proud of us for having the confidence to just be doing a lot of these because I think there's so many little best practices that you figure out. I did a program for mission genealogy. I think I sort of did two programs for mission genealogy. And if you all want to actually, here's another insider tip. If you chat here, I have to remember what you said. And, come on, I'm not that good at that. So if there's something you want to follow up with, drop me a chat in the in a reply to the post that I made. Hello, Cynthia. Make a comment in the reply in the chat message that I posted to the chat channel for Projectkin. While we're on the subject, chat on Substack. Would these people please use different terms for different meanings? It is so confusing. I love this product, but damn, it's confusing with those things. Chat means really three different things in my book. One is the
mhm.
blah, blah, blah we have right here. Welcome. Hello. Two is the chat in a channel, which is why I refer to it as a channel. So my Substack publication has its own channel for
Mhm.
conversations. And as far as I can tell, it works best when I pick a topic and then let other people comment. And I don't usually it lets my members create new topics because when I did, people were like, I don't know what to say. And I had threads spooling all over the place and it was just messy. And then mashers have taken advantage of that. And then the third place, of course, for chat is one-on-ones, which is, like an SMS. It is a chat. It's very confusing. So here we are. Welcome, Pauline. I did go to that webinar. It was very interesting. I learned all kinds of interesting things, as I mentioned somewhere in some post somehow. As of Monday, or at least they said, it might change their mind. As of Monday, they would be announcing the ability to set up an RSVP for a live session. If that's true, again, it's hard to know. It will work the way Luma works. If you know lu.ma, Luma is not a replacement for Zoom, but it does do an important thing that Zoom does, which is essentially a reservation, an RSVP. I go, I say I want to do something, and then it sends me back a link that is doing that. Yes, Jackie, that's what I heard was that Substack
Mm.
will be doing this. Like Luma, you will be able to put out, come to my event, and then you could click a button and say, yes, I want to. And then you get an email back saying, you said you were going to be there at this time. And you can push a button to add it to your calendar, which if you've ever looked at how to do that, there is a add event or something like that is a little tool that's out there that's like 20 bucks a month, 10 bucks a month. It's too expensive in my book for what it does. It works well, and you see it in a lot of big companies, which is fine, but it's too expensive for my blood. So that this is integrated in that simply to Substack, I think makes a lot of sense. And by the way, it also is a nice complement. If you have a premium service, you can make the
Mm.
live sessions limited only to premium subscribers. So
Ah,
now you've got an
oh,
RSVP and a paywall. It's a really nice way to be able to do everything you could have done in a combination of other products like Stripe and Zoom, which would be 50 bucks a
mm.
month in a blink of an eye. And then all you do is you pay your tithe to Zoom. So I don't know. I think that's going to be very interesting. As I was sharing with Kathy ahead of the call, insider tip for those of you who come on Sundays. Um, I am going to be experimenting with what amounts to the kind of live streaming tools that the cool kids use on Twitch. Because apparently that lets me do live streaming from the equivalent of a desktop to do this kind
Mm.
of live streaming, and maybe even doing it, in horizontal instead of vertical form. We'll find out. Anyway, I don't want, I need some, if you're interested in how that works,
Mm.
drop me a note in the Projectkin chat channel in a reply to my post about this so that I can follow up with you, because frankly, I will need some people to practice with who are willing to put up with me. Okay.
We're looking for live volunteers.
Yes, because you know what, Kathy? That's how this all started, isn't it?
Yep.
You were so gracious to follow me back in the Ponga days, and you came sniffing around as we were developing the software, and were there for the whole very long year after we announced it and before we released it at 2021, between the first Roots Tech before the pandemic and the first Roots Tech virtual for the pandemic, and stayed with us all along as we were experimenting. And you always had this consistent story to tell. Here I am, a photo manager, and there are things that I know that everyone should know about what to do with their own collection. And yet, hello, Terry, welcome. And yet, folks don't know. And there's simple ways to make it not a bunch of shoulds, but let's talk about it. And that's what became Kathy's Corner. So we all go hang out on Kathy's Corner, and sure enough, Thursday is another Kathy's Corner. That would be Thursday here in California at 3 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Mountain, where Kathy is. And if I get this right, 6 p.m. on the US East Coast. Times has not jumped yet in the UK. They are still on GMT. So for them, and you can remind me, I believe the 3 p.m. Pacific is not midnight. It would be 10 p.m. in GMT for another week, and then everything jumps ahead. And then in Asia Pac, oh goodness, I think I'm over my tilt, but it's somewhere in the early morning, and that's what World
Mm.
Time Buddy, when they're not lying, works. So, Kathy, tell us a little bit about what
Sorry,
I have no
I'm
idea.
laughing and I have no idea. I'm like Anne. I'm not. I'm just sitting here
The
quietly.
only question for GMT is for you, Anne, is did I get a nap? And Anne, if you did not get a nap, you are not allowed. You can watch the recording in the morning. How's that for a rule? We have a special case for Jennifer in Australia because we know Jennifer now. She gets up in the middle of the night to go and
Uh,
exercise because she is incredible, and she's become a part of both oceans. As we know, she's got superpowers. Hello, Lisa. Welcome.
and that's dedication.
It is. It is. Better nap. There you go. I love that. I love that. So, Kathy, for our live session coming up on Thursday, do tell us what you have in mind.
Well, we're carrying on because we started, I think in January, we started a series called Exploring Our Mystery Photos. So we were talking about that, all those photos we have that we're not sure the where, the when, the who, but we figured that if somebody bothered to keep this photo, we should probably have a check into what it is and what it could be and find details. And other times we find photos that this is really cool, but I wish I knew what was going on in this picture. And so we started exploring ways to figure out the who, what, where, when, why of these photos to help us tell the stories and also to make those photos meaningful. And so we talked about in the first two sessions, we talked about the actual media itself, be it a picture or a film or a slide, and what we can gain about particularly dating by dates of production. In photos, we looked at a whole bunch of cool stuff that does it have a deckled edge? What's the shape of the deckled edge? Is it square? Is it a landscape? Is it in color? Is it in black and white? And provided you could go back to those Kathy's Corners, and we have resources where you can actually look that stuff up. What's on the back of the photo? What's in a lot of photographic stamps have information in them. They'll give the location where the picture frame was developed, which again, all these things built us up to clues to go, oh, that gives me more of a context to start using more to try and solve the mystery. And so we're moving on now. We're going to actually look at the fronts of the photos. We're going to look at what's actually in the picture instead of the photos itself. And again, building on what we've already gleaned from what has been what we talked about in the other thing. So we're going to look at all sorts of things and like the clothing, the era, the what's in the back of the photo, what type of is it an older professional photo with some kind of setting in the background. And Barbara, I don't know, we might be on an anniversary of sorts too with 5 years here. Is that I first connected with Barbara on Instagram because she was posting about identifying things in old photos. And that's one of my favorite pastimes. And I believe the original one that I happened to just stumble on Instagram was a car. And I messaged Barbara and said, here's some resources to look up the cars. So this is what I use. And that just sparked our 5-year now, I think, online friendship. So someday I'm going to come
Is it
down to California.
the one with the two little girls?
I can't remember. I think it was,
Oh,
yes. I think it
yeah.
was. There was
The
a
what
car
looks
in
like
it.
one little girl behind the steering wheel and the other one sitting right in front of it, stooped to the
Yep.
ground.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
bring
I
that
think I
on
know who
Thursday.
that is. I think I
Yes.
know who it is now. I don't know the age of the car, but I'm going to
Yeah.
post that in the notes with this one.
Yeah. And then originally through Ponga, we spent a lot of time talking about how to identify
Yeah.
dates and ages and the stories behind photos, because everybody has them. So we're going to look at all sorts of stuff, and some are just little tips, like the one that I don't know how many birthday candles I've counted in photos, and this is more modern age, but I've trying to figure out what year the photo was by the number of
Yeah.
candles on the cake, because I knew who the kid was, but it's like, how many candles is on the cake? So I've counted a lot of birthday candles in my time, but little tips like that can help you figure out the who, what's going on, what's the time frame, and get more clues to finally be able to tell the story behind their photos, because that's what it's all
Mhm.
about. So
Mhm.
that's what we're going to look at. So if you've got photos that you want to bring, that would be delightful. I don't know
Ooh.
how far. I think Barbara's going to bring one of my favorites of hers and tell about how she found information out about that photo and the
That's right.
things in the photo. The Harder family
That's right,
picnic.
and I still have 2 people in that photo, an adult man and a child that I don't know who they are. There's a funny story about a guest that my mother had when she was still suffering dementia, and what I found from a telex. A
Oh, I love it.
telegram.
Yes, a
A
telex.
telegram. No,
So
I
that's what we're going to basically have a look at, some tips and things. And again, I've got to mention, because Barbara had Maureen Taylor on a chat with me during Roots Tech, which was one of the highlights of my year so far, was to be on a talk with Maureen Taylor, because Maureen Taylor's kind of the guru of this, the Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, about identifying things, in particular her work on clothing and stuff. And I've
Mhm.
used a lot of her books as reference too. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about, and we'll be. I'm looking at all sorts of things. You can see those Kathy's corners from the 2 weeks before, and also if you have questions or something came up after and you forgot, didn't post it, bring the questions to Kathy's corner. I'm quite happy to answer questions too and look at some things further. And so
Yeah.
I like interactive better than just me talking. So.
So do I. In fact, Maureen is now quite active here on Substack, doing things that are complementary to the rest of her properties from YouTube and Facebook and other places that she is familiar, is well known,
Mhm.
and that really was a very fun
Oh, it was so
connection to
fun.
put the two of you together because you're bouncing along at a level the rest of us are just running alongside to keep up with, but it's inspiring. And in fact, even as you're describing this, I was thinking I've been deep in the gunnels of my Lafayette project still, about to work on a project recipe that will be do
Huh.
an event for that in April. But the notion of a simple timeline that you can
Yeah.
reflect back on, you think about so many of those historical stamps that, brownie
Mhm.
cameras were not around prior to, they were rare after. Lantern photos, color, each of those things have kind of specific milestones before and
Yeah.
after that y'all experts kind of know. And some of that is proprietary, but most of it is historical and can be simply looked up. Gosh, it would be fun to have an incremental shared community aggregated timeline that we can all be
Yeah.
looking at because
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
done out of a Google Sheet. There's nothing proprietary about how this thing
Yeah.
works. And anyway,
Good
that
idea.
sounds like
That's an
fun.
interesting idea.
Yay. I
And then
saw many
another
of
one
you
of my
come in.
favorites that just occurred to me as you were talking, Barbara, is if you have like a horizontal rectangle, that's the word I'm looking for, photo. It could be a portrait or it could be a landscape, but it's and 3x5, 4x6. And it's all orangey brown. You'll know that came from the 70s, because during the 70s there was a some kind of a problem with the developing process. I'd have to go back and dig out my notes on that to find out what it was, but it was the era of the 1 hour photo places. And all those photos, I got a whole pile of them. They have all turned brown. And that was something to do with how they were, because somebody goes, oh, whoever took these pictures had a terrible camera. Like, why are their photo, like they didn't have any
Yeah.
idea how to light them. And it's like, no, this was a developing error. And in fact, if you can find the negatives and get them digitized, you'll actually get better pictures. But
If it
the
was
prints
during the
are terrible.
70s, is it fair to say that, and it happened in the print process, is it fair to say that slides would not have been affected?
Yeah.
And generally, you don't store slides near the light anyway.
No,
So
exactly.
I know that like there was Ektachrome was
And I
tended to
think it
be
was
so much
kind of a
bluer.
combination between the chemicals that were used for the processing
Uh,
and not being properly stored, like being in
yeah.
either my favorite thing, the magnetic album, or
Still
or
have some.
light exposure. Yeah, Barbara's
Yeah.
going, oh, do I have any of those?
Oh, I know exactly where they are. I have sitting here on my we'll call it my work table.
Yeah.
I'm going to the Oakland, which you told me about, the Oakland Family Search Center next week in early April for a special program with my friend Ron Chan, who has been active here on Projectkin and in Substack. And Anyway, I have an entire box of 4x6 prints to take in to use with their high-speed scanner because you are the goddess to tell me that. So Jackie says, I just came
I'm
across a photo that's
reading
brownish in
that.
color. And wow, that makes so much sense. I took the took a film developing class in college. So it's not you.
Well, and I'm happy to hear that too, Jackie, that this isn't something in my brain when I overthink things that I just decided that was true. Um, but I think everybody has those brown photos, and you can actually do some correcting of them if you only have prints. Like they're not like, oh, let's just throw these in the garbage. And you know my
Yeah.
philosophy: if it's the only picture I'm keeping, it doesn't matter how bad. I've got some real blurry photos that you have to really squint to look at them, but they're the only photo that exists of certain people or a certain event. So I'm,
And sometimes, Kathy, my favorite story of yours, you know where I'm going with this, right?
I do, yes,
Are the stories that a photo is itself clearly damaged, but the damage in the photo is itself part of the story. Just
yeah.
like the frame, I will tell the story of, but tell us the story about bird poop.
So my grandfather, who I remember dearly, he in his retirement, he had parakeets or budgies. I don't know if that's the
Budgies.
same kind of
Oh,
bird. They
parakeet.
were budgies. Here, we called them budgie birds. And he always had a couple budgies, and he would lay on the couch, and the budgie would sit on. They came out of their cage, and he'd sit on his glasses and appear to be reading the newspaper with him. Like the budgie would sit there long enough that I'm sure he learned how to read. But so these budgies were free range budgies within the house. They didn't just stay in their cage. But as budgies are prone to do, they also didn't just poop in their cage. So some of the photos that hung on the walls in my grandparents' house, the frames were a really good perch to land on when you were flying around the house. So there are photos that I was telling Barbara, I said, there's something on this photo and I'm trying to get it off. And then I went, oh, yeah, it's probably just bird poop because there's bird poop on quite a few photos, but you can edit
Yeah.
that out too. So, but it is
Yeah.
part of the story and it brings back that memory of. I don't have pictures of the birds sitting on my grandpa's glasses, but whenever I
Yeah.
think of that and I look at those photos that have those little marks on them, I go, yeah,
So
grandpa's
there is
budgies. So,
perfect a perfect segue from a fact of bird pooped paper to a story that
yeah,
helps describe why those photos are so meaningful.
yeah.
And my variation on that is a frame and photos that I used as an example for something in this group where you and were participating in, and Larkham, the photogenealogy expert in
Mhm.
up in Scotland. And I held up what I have described as this butt ugly frame. I mean, it's still ugly. Sorry. And in it, I got it from a cousin who's like, I don't know, all this dusty stuff. Whatever, you do whatever you want to do with it. So I went through and I cleaned all the frames and I cleaned the pieces. As a matter of fact, our Nana's, the brown one right here, is one of the photos he brought me as well, and the two photos next to it as well. And I cleaned them all and made copies and, protected the originals. And in this really ugly frame, it was a side by side of my great great grandparents from cabinet cards. And one of them I had never seen before. It's a lovely treasure. And of course, it was scarred by the fact that it had been this weird frame with sort of a sideway curve on each of the two that matched together. And lesson learned, be very cautious of any original anywhere near the sun, like this sunroom
Mhm.
I'm in here, and make sure that you have your copies of it, or better yet, only display a copy and keep the original preserved. So the originals were damaged by the sun and this butt ugly frame. So Anne points out that the butt ugly frame is part of the story. And as much as I might fight with this ugly frame, I have to say, I haven't had it in my heart to destroy it and get rid of it. So I still have it. I took the originals out and I have them displayed not in the butt ugly frame because the girl's got to have standards.
I got to
But
see the frame now, though. Dan liked it.
and and I can package it up and know that it would be treasured. You come get it. You come get it. I've got a spare bedroom for you. Well,
We all
there
want to
we
see it
are.
now, though.
Um,
Not right now. You can bring it on
okay.
Thursday.
I'll see if I can pull it up for you on, on my way. I can even show you on Thursday my very tasteful display of my four great grandparents into one nice frame. But that's a good example where I'm applying my own context in my own framing to them, like it's my own exhibit hall, and I am the curator of the museum. But I do need to respect the displays of the past, even if the context is not clear to me.
Mhm.
Anywho, this is the kind of fun we have. It's been delightful to have all of you. Part of, I think, what makes these work is keeping them short and sweet. So, again, I welcome all of your comments that you want me to follow up on, and I always enjoy doing that. Leave your comments in the Projectkin chat. If you're not sure what to do with any of that, that's okay too. You can email me at projectkin.org. You know that already, projectkin.org at gmail.com. The dot's irrelevant, actually, but it makes it easier to remember. So feel free to email me if that's easier. Somewhere along the way, and here I mentioned that I went to a webinar put on by the good people at Substack about things you
Mhm.
didn't know about using Substack Live. I think they will soon be circulating the recording. I haven't seen it yet. But one of the lessons that I learned was a big surprise. Here it is. So when you complete a live session, as I am now, I will be given the option immediately on hitting the end to send out the recording immediately, or posting the recording immediately, or drop it into my drafts box. And I always said, well, who would ever send it immediately? Come on. There's so many other things. I want to put in, notes and links and things like that into the notes. All true, but here's why you want to do it immediately. It turns out that if someone just now opened their screen and just now saw that
Mhm.
there's a live going on, when they hit play, they start from the beginning. So even though we're
Ah,
done, they start from the beginning. If the instant we're done, I say put it in the drafts and they 2 seconds later join, they get
nothing.
this message that says, sorry, it's all over. Otherwise, they go
Mm.
to the recording. And the difference between it actually being live and watching the recording is kind of small. So that's, I think, a nice little subtlety, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to go ahead and say, put it on out there right
Go
away.
for it
I'll
now.
be sneaking along, making changes and updating it. Maybe I'll put a note out to say, okay, I'm done making changes.
Here's the
But
final.
who's to say I don't go back to past posts and update them? I mean, come on, who doesn't do that? This is not academic writing, just to be clear. Sometimes. All righty. It's been lovely as always, Kathy. I can't wait to see you and all of you. Lovely to
Wonderful to
meet.
see everyone here. I
And
love it.
I know, who knew? Can I say love too? Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yay! All righty then. Thank you so much. And I will
Thanks,
see you
everyone.
on Thursday.
We'll see you Thursday. Bye
Bye
bye.
now. Oh, I hit end.
You have to end it, I think. Yeah.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.